Welcome back to the vlog. You might notice over here, Grandma has decided to spoil the nephews. She even opened up her own eBay account to get one of those things. Also, if you're wondering why those are here, the rule is that if she buys anything for them, they have to leave it here unless their parents want it in their house, which I can totally see why they don't want gigantic Legos. Any more gigantic Legos in their house. Like I mentioned yesterday, the episode is very, very close to being done. We just have to do a little bit more narration. Okay, I gotta go run some errands. They don't really end, so I might as well just go do them. Actually, it's not even really a big deal, I'm just joking. But it does need to be taken care of, so let's go do that. Let's go do the stuff we gotta do, man. Come on, come on. All right, I'm back and I have a burrito. You know, I'm sure I've never made this entirely clear, but the reason I eat these burritos so much is just because A, it's fast, and B, they have recognizable ingredients, you know? Nothing is super processed, nothing in it is terrible for you, most of it's pretty nutritious, and it tastes pretty good. And because I'm a very lazy cook and I just eat to sustain myself, this is usually a decent option. So a year ago, the pandemic had just started. Well, we were actually kind of in the swing of the pandemic at this point. So my mom, she put a whole floor in here so she could keep teaching her classes virtually. Unfortunately, a few months ago, the water heater was leaking, got a bunch of water under it, so the whole thing had to come out anyway. It's okay because it wasn't being used anymore anyway. It's a shame though because the floor was perfectly good beside that. Anyways, all of that streaming equipment is no longer being used. She was using a Panasonic G7. Man, the Panasonic G7, what a powerhouse. And we paid like $390 for it because Adorama has them used sometimes. Oh man, crazy good camera. But I need to box all that stuff up and put it in a nice place because if I don't do that, nobody's gonna do it. And then this stuff is just gonna get lost and scattered, and like this AC adapter cable, who knows where that even is right now. I better find that. I'm kind of curious, are you the type of person who knows where every single one of your belongings is at all times? Or are you the type of person who's like, I think I have that, but I have no idea where it's at? As you might have guessed, I am the type of person who knows where every single thing I own is at pretty much all times. And if I don't know where it is, it's because I hope that I don't have it anymore. Once again, it is time for a run. If you are wondering what happened here, let's just say I was a little overzealous while eating my burrito. So you may or may not have noticed, depending on what device you're using and what internet connection you're using, but this video has been in 60 frames per second. I find 60 frames per second very interesting conceptually, but I don't know if I actually like it for the stuff that I shoot. I don't think that there is one right answer. 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, all of the different frame rates have their place. But I will say when it comes to that term, what looks cinematic, 60 frames per second does not look cinematic. So I majored in telecommunications in college, essentially to do video production, but I only took like a couple of video production classes. In one of them, my professor, there's a funny story about that professor where he gave us a quiz one time and it was filled with typos, and I corrected all the typos. And then after that, he really didn't seem to like me and I didn't understand why. And it wasn't until years later I thought about it. I was like, oh, that's probably why. You know, it's funny, I actually don't hold anything against him. I actually still like him. And I just was a dumb idiot and I didn't realize that that could be something that would annoy somebody else. And his class where he taught me how to use After Effects, that made me a lot of money on freelance video production. So I have to thank him for that class. That was an excellent class. But in the video production class I had with him, there was this other student who looked just like Justin Timberlake. I don't remember what his name was, but he was so adamant that 24 frames per second looked better than 60 frames per second. And I knew the difference, and I was like, I think I prefer 24 frames per second too. But our professor was super adamant that if you still shot stuff cinematically and had good lighting and everything, you could still make something look cinematic in 60 frames per second. And those two butted heads on that quite a bit in the class. And on one of the projects, he ended up shooting his stuff in 24 frames per second. It looked awesome. It was like this really stylized music video. I was like, wow, how did he do that? I just shot my thing in 60 frames per second because that's what he told us to do. But now having shot a lot of video, I have to say he was wrong about 60 frames per second. It does not look cinematic. And like I just said, that doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It just means that it does not have that specific quality of when you think cinematic in your head, you do not think 60 frames per second. This is too smooth. This looks really cool and it has its place like live streaming. I think it looks great for live streaming. For video games, 60 frames per second, the higher frame rate you can get, the better. But when it comes to the stuff that I shoot, 24 frames per second looks the best to me. It's funny though, because I don't like the look of this for Adventure Archives, but I still want to film an episode in 60 frames per second just so I can have an entire episode in 60 frames per second so I could directly compare them. Because I haven't done that specifically. I don't think it would ever grow on me, but yeah, it could. Well, it's unlikely. It's pretty unlikely. Okay, let's go run. Continue. You know, speaking of podcasts, sometimes I'm just so sick of hearing what anybody has to say about anything. I'm just like, I gotta listen to some music. So on that note, if when you watch my vlogs and you're just like, man, I cannot listen to this idiot talk about anything anymore, I totally get it. I feel that way about myself sometimes. You know the term hunger when it's used to describe stuff other than eating? Like, oh, he's a hungry young actor or a hungry young athlete. I actually find that super accurate to describe all the things that I've gotten good at in my life. Is that when I was good at jumping, I just had this hunger for it. Not doing it was akin to not eating. And all the things I've gotten really good at in my life, it's always been like that. It's been something that's almost like I can't help but do it. Okay, time for a little stretching. Oh! We need some music to go with this, though. So I was talking about podcasts on my vlog yesterday, and I was saying how I have a high standard for podcasts, and part of the reason why I don't do Campfire Chronicles is because I don't think it's very good. I don't feel that way about our podcast, but we have not done one.
That's true.
In a long time. Do you want to do one next week, this week, some week?
Yeah, I do want to do one.
Okay, that'll do it for today's vlog. I will see you in the next one right now or tomorrow. I'll see you later, and you later. It's a tight fit.